So I'm a salt fiend. I love salt. Some people like to taste wines. I like to taste different salts. I collect them from all over the world. I've always got a bunch of different kinds in my house. I mean, salt just makes food taste delicious. But in order to maintain better health, the quality of the salt that you consume really matters. And nobody knows more about salt than Selina DeLongre. So I am so excited for you to hear from her today. I had the great pleasure of meeting Selina many years ago after buying her salt and using high quality salt for years. We had the most beautiful dinner with Donna Gates from Body Ecology. And we just bonded because the three of us have a macrobiotic background and a lot of things in common with our food philosophy and our love of salt and quality food and helping people reach better health. A beautiful friendship was born. We've been friends for many years now, and I was thrilled when she agreed to be one of my sponsors for my book tours with the Blender Girl Smoothies and the Perfect Blend. And helping to educate people about salt has just been one of my favorite things about working in the health and nutrition space. The other thing about Selina that I really love is just her commitment to quality and integrity and the way that she has built her business around her genuine love and care for others, whether it's people in her team, but also all of her customers. And her personal journey with food and her family is just so inspiring. The way that she makes decisions, the way that she navigates challenges, the way that she embraces her "it has to be me" moments. So let's get the skinny from Selina DeLongre. Oh, Selina, I am so excited to just cozy up with you today and get messy. Uh, for those of you that don't know Selina DeLongre, she is the owner of Selina Naturally and Celtic Sea Salt, my favorite salt in the world, and really sets the standard for how you should run a company and the transparency that's involved and the testing that's involved in putting the best salt in the world to market. Um, Gosh, we've been on a journey together, and I continue to be touched by your incredible generosity of spirit. So I'm so excited that you've joined me. I want to ask about where your journey started. With health and nutrition,
Mm,
and just to tell us a little bit more about Jacques and Yvette and how
yeah,
they introduced you to the power of food as medicine.
absolutely. Well, it's a really funny story because I was 19 years old, moved from Indiana, Muncie, Indiana, to California, and I met Philippe, which was my husband, which we eventually got married. But when he took me out to get something to eat, he said, "What do you want?" And I said, "Oh, a Pepsi and this." And he just kind of looked at me like, I went, "Well, I'll pay for it if you want me to." But he was like hesitating, like, "I really don't buy Pepsi. I never even really, Tess, for me, I had no clue that Pepsi was bad for you. I really I didn't. So that was my first introduction there. But I grew up with migraine headaches, since from puberty on. And for whatever reason, I was open to hear what he had to say. And I said, "Have you
Yeah.
paid for it?" He goes, "No, it's just Pepsi's not really good for you." And I went, "Oh." And then that started the conversation of enlightening me. And that was in 1979.
Wow, when that was, considered hippy dippy back then.
Oh, you couldn't, there wasn't a health food store.
Yeah.
Little tiny markets every now and then, but there was no whole
Yeah.
food store.
Yeah. So Jacques and Yvette, Yvette introduced you to macrobiotics,
Yeah.
didn't she? Because you and I really connected when we met physically for the first time
Yeah.
in California over that, because that's my background as well. So did she start teaching you to cook and really introduce you to all these amazing
Oh,
ingredients, and then you just started to feel better? Did that help you with your migraines?
absolutely. The first thing was I didn't know what I could eat. I only knew what I couldn't eat. So that was a little scary,
Ah.
And back then, there wasn't all this education. You couldn't go do a Google search. So that was the first thing. So I just didn't eat hardly anything at all until I went to their house. But walking into their house, the smell of fresh baked bread and their fire oven and the brown rice cooking and the miso soup and the gamasio that she just made and her
Oh,
sriracha. The smell
It sounds like my happy place.
I've never had the aromas ever. I've never smelled anything like this.
Oh,
And it was
yeah.
aligned with me. I embraced it very quickly, and it was within a week. I felt like, "Are you kidding me?" I didn't realize I could feel so good.
Oh, isn't that the best feeling ever?
Yeah.
I mean, I love what you were talking about, how immediately you went to what I can't have. And then when you opened things up with them, you realized that getting healthy is about what you add, not about what you take away.
Well, I'm going to have to say the whole journey and introduction, and I think macrobiotics is known for this. It's a very fear-based diet, I do believe, and for me it was, and
Yeah.
my teaching. So there was still a lot of fear, guilt, shame around the food, and I think today it's not like that. There, then it was.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Yeah,
Tell me more about that.
yeah. Just well, first of all, if I didn't feel well, the first thing was, well, what did you do? What did you eat? So you had really had to
Ooh.
take responsibility and be held accountable for how you felt because it was something that you did that made you feel that way. And that was so there.
And what did that make you feel
It was
like,
interesting.
being in that pressure
If
cooker?
I did have a headache, I did not want to share that I had a headache. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
So, how did that have a flow on effect in your marriage and your relationship with that family?
It was interesting. It didn't really start affecting until I had my second child, because my second child, Carla, she was the one that, because Dominique, my special needs child, he couldn't talk. So he ate what I gave him, and he just opened his mouth, and I would feed him, and he would eat. But then the second child, she'd be sitting at the table, and there was a lot of observation with judgment. Chew your food. You remember the chewing your food? How many times you're supposed to chew your food?
Yeah.
Don't eat this first, eat that. It was like, and I can remember just saying, you guys,
Ah,
milk
there
is
were a lot of
supposed to be something
rules.
enjoyable, not something that they're
Yeah.
afraid that they're going to eat one thing and not the other. And there was no bad intention in it. It's just that they believed in macrobiotics so much. It was almost like a religion, and they knew it.
Yeah, I can really relate to that, Selena, because when I was first introduced to macrobiotics, it was like that for me
Mm,
too. So thank you for reminding me
mhm,
about that, because I too,
mhm.
just like you and Donna,
Yeah,
when we had that dinner all those
right.
years ago, we all really related on this level about how we had moved away from dogma and an extreme
Mhm.
approach in macrobiotics because of this very reason. So I really appreciate you reminding me in this moment that that's actually really what it was like for me as well, and that we've both moved into this place where flexibility and rather than rigidity, is where the magic happens. So tell me about what it was like to give birth to a special needs child. What did that feel like for you? What did that bring up for you? What was that it has to be me moment for you?
Wow. Well, first of all, my I had two sisters that were pregnant kind of within the same 9 months, and they, they ate McDonald's. They did whatever they want. But I ate macrobiotics, so I was going to have a
Yeah.
superb child. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember eating a grapefruit, and my mother-in-law came in the room, and I hope anyone listening to this is not about putting my in-laws down, because I would not be who I am if it wasn't for them. But because they
Mm,
believed in the cause and effect of food so much, I was eating a
mm.
grapefruit, and she said, "I hope your baby's lips are not being formed at this time, because it could cause a hair lip."
Ah,
So
sorry, I'm having like an outward reaction to that.
this was the reality of my pregnancy. I was going to have the
Oh,
perfect child, because I was doing everything that I was being taught that makes you healthy and have perfect children. And all the people we hang out
yeah.
with at the macrobiotic camps at French Meadow, they all had these perfect, gorgeous children. So when Dominique
Ah,
was born, um, and he wasn't perfect. There was a lot of shame, guilt, anger, frustration, confusion, a lot of it. Yeah.
So did you feel like you had failed in
Oh,
that mission of being perfect? What did you learn from that? Because you're so not that way now. You went on
mm,
such a beautiful journey and learned so many lessons from Dominique. Take us inside that a little bit.
that's a great question. I was introduced to a book, and I do not know how this was introduced to me. And the name of the book was Happiness is a Choice. And I read
Ooh,
that.
that's a good title.
I read that book and I realized I am completely justified to get all the pity for what has been dealt to me. But I did not want to live that life. I wanted to be happy. And so that was my striving, was how I was going to find the sunshine in this situation. So that was what I did. I went to find the sunshine and the happiness in this situation, because depression is hard to get out of. And I fell into the depression,
Yeah.
and I realized it's almost like, you don't, if you've never really had depression, you don't know what it feels like when you're creeping into it. If you have had depression, you know when it's coming on again, but I didn't. So I didn't know what was happening. When I fell in the bucket, I couldn't get out. It was really scary. So I realized that you got to nip it before you fall into the bucket, and you got to do the little practices of things that can help you not, which is, for me, it's just when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, and that's it.
Oh, we love that Wayne Dyer quote.
Every
That's one of my
Oh,
favorites.
I am who I
Uh,
am because of all these people, Wayne Dyers and the Bruce Lipton,
oh,
all of them.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's for sure. Uh, For somebody, for somebody listening right now who is in a depression
Mhm,
and in that bucket,
mhm.
or about to feel like they're going into the bucket they'll never be able to get out of, what are some of the tangible things that you actually did besides read these books? What were some of the practices that you used?
Um, I, it's interesting. I was so young. I don't really say that I did this, 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 and this. I just say I do know that talking to friends would give me a little bit of relief. But when you're depressed and you have a situation that you can't find someone that can relate and give empathy to, it's harder, because they can't say, I know how you feel. I know what that's like. So I think the best thing that I would say is, I found like a when I would meet another mother that was going through the
Mm,
same thing. There was like,
yeah.
it's hard to say, but like, misery likes comfort or something. I don't know really how to describe it.
Oh yeah, but so the community, so staying in community and in conversation and in relationship with people who had a shared experience to you was a real lifeline for you.
For a small time, Tess, because when I found out there was support groups for parents with special needs, I started going to them. It was a very victim environment, so I couldn't stay in that place because it was about poor me. I had to figure out how to find that happy place, and it was really just find the blessings. I would see another special needs child and I would go, wow, it could be worse. I would just constantly find the reasons to be happy, find the reasons to have gratitude, because you can, no matter what you're going
Yeah.
through, you can find a place for gratitude if you look.
Yeah.
But we tend to look at
So
misery.
yeah. Yeah, it's so easy to put the lens on what we don't have as opposed to what we
Yes.
do have. You have this beautiful chapter in your book, in Her Element, about lessons from Dominique.
Mm,
And how has that informed your relationship with Carla and Colette, your two daughters?
mm. Ah,
These lessons that you learned from Dominique.
right. I think it's being able to love unconditionally. And I don't know why this is bringing up some emotions for me, but With Dominique, with when you have someone in your life that is not the most optimal experience, you want to blame that person for you not being happy. There was nothing to blame with Dominique. He wasn't doing anything wrong, but I but there's something about the relief of blame. It's an interesting thing, when you can blame someone for your misery. Oh, my husband's an asshole, or those kind of things. It's almost like the
Mm.
level of emotions that takes you up another level. With Dominique, I would feel guilty if I blamed him, because it wasn't his fault if having
Hmm.
100 seizures a day. So I think for me, it
Yeah.
was really just learning how to completely love unconditionally. And I think I did the same thing with my daughters. There was nothing that they could do that could disappoint me. Nothing. Nothing. And I think that's probably the what
Mm.
I got from having Dominique was that.
Yeah. So, you know, I don't know about you. Tell me about your experience, but um, I have found in my life that it's easier to forgive and to see the light in others than myself sometimes. So you talked about the shame and the blame and the guilt and the failure that came along with giving birth to Dominique. How did you move into a place within yourself that you could forgive yourself for anything, that there was nothing that you could do that wouldn't be accepting to you like you were doing with your children?
Um, I'm still working on that test. If you really want me to be honest with you, that's something I'm still working on. But
Oh, me too. Please join me in that space of we're still learning with that one. Oh, I love that honest response.
yeah, but to be honest with you, I think
Yeah.
it was 3 days before Dominic crossed over when that woman that was a psychic brought to my attention that our souls agreed to do this. I went, okay,
Oh, incredible story in your
done.
book. Yeah.
But 28 years of the shame and guilt,
Yeah, that's a
yeah,
yeah.
and that's
Yeah, that little bumblebee necklace is a pretty incredible story in your book.
you can't make those stories
Yeah.
up,
So
right?
so tell us. Yeah, yeah. It's incredible. How you felt it.
Mm,
You felt him cross over, and then you continue to feel his presence.
mm.
Listener, if you're feeling like we're leaving you out of the conversation here, I was reading Selina's book recently, and there's just this beautiful story about when Dominique passed over, and just this feeling of that you had agreed to teach each other some really important things that you needed to learn. Um, so tell me about how that affects you as a business owner, a woman in, let's be clear, is still a male dominated place,
Absolutely.
being a leader in your space, a mentor, a business owner, and really a trailblazer in the salt space around the world. Tell me what that was like to take over the company that had been run by Jacques and Yvette, your
In-laws.
father-in-law and mother-in-law, at 45.
Mm.
So
That was
what was that like for you as someone who'd grown up as a Catholic girl, you know, didn't feel like you really knew as much as all of them? I mean, that's a huge leap. What was that "it has to be me" moment like?
oh my gosh, Tess. I think it was just about surrendering. And I think having that, when I took over the company, Dominic was still alive. So I didn't have the insight of that experience of seeing that psychic and understanding that our souls actually designed this life before we came. So I didn't have that insight when I took this over. It's like a survival. It's like a mother cub survival thing. If it's meant to be, it's up to me. And I just dove in and I trusted that God in the universe.
But what was it in you, Selena? I mean, you didn't have to take over that company, did you?
I did not have to. I felt like I wanted to because this is hard to talk about without putting someone down. But I didn't have the confidence that my husband was going to provide for the family the way we needed to be provided. So I felt like it was my responsibility.
Yeah, because it's expensive to have a special needs child and raise 2
Yeah.
daughters and that kind of stuff. So your "It Has to Be Me" was exactly like you say, it was about financial survival.
It
I have
was.
to put food on the table. I have to provide carers for Dominique.
Yes.
I've gotta, yeah, send my kids to college or whatever it is. Like, and I gotta do it. No one's gonna back me up here.
That was one of them, and then the other one was I was good at what I did. I was good at it, and it was like my element. I was really good at it, and I danced with it. So really, that was those were my.
What were you tell me about what you were good at.
It was the
Tell me about what you were good
I
at the
have a
company.
radar. So, an entrepreneur, if there's a line, they want to see what the line is about. They want to go see what that is. So, I have a radar for
Yeah.
opportunities. And I would, every morning when I do my meditation and prayers, I ask to see the world through God's eyes, and I ask for any opportunities to come to me that I'm supposed to be working on, and they would just come to me. But I also live in a little, I'm a Cancerian, so there's a little bit of scarcity energy in me. I always have to think of security. So I was thinking, okay, we can get this salt from France. Ooh, what if something happens to that source? I better be finding another source. You can't do this overnight. So I was out there diversifying our sources, saying, you better think ahead. You have to forecast. You have to look at a SWOT analysis all the time, which is, the strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats when you're running a business. That's what you constantly have to be in a mode to be looking at. And that's what I've done. And that's why I need to retire, is because I'm exhausted, because I live my whole life in a SWOT analysis. I wake up in the middle of the night with SWOT analysis. And I hang out in the threats and risk more than I do in the other ones, because it's how I'm
I mean,
it's how I'm wired. The what if,
yeah,
the
but
what if,
gosh,
what if.
it served you. Yeah, gosh, though it served you in just growing this company and at the same time maintaining integrity within that. I want to go into that a little bit if you don't mind. This so the company was already successful in the sense of that people really loved this salt,
Yeah,
and it had this incredibly loyal following.
absolutely.
And then you took it to a whole other level. So talk me through what it was like where all of the suppliers in Brittany and France, you were getting the salt from this amazing region in France, and they knew Jacques and respected him, and they knew Philippe, and you didn't speak the language. What was it like when you first went over there and you knew you had to forge your own relationship with this supplier and you weren't sure how they were going to receive you?
You are going deep.
What was that "It Has to Be Me" moment for you?
You're going really deep, aren't you? That was so humbling. I was scared to death, and I was really scared because my husband said they're not going to sell salt to you, because they're more loyal to me and my father, because it was not an easy divorce. It took 5 years, and I was scared of what I was going to walk into. But I don't know how much time we have to tell you the story how I went there, because I've met this attorney in San Francisco, and at a bachelorette party, and he had a ride off while him and his friend were visiting from Belgium, and I got his contact information. I said, "Listen, I got to go to Brittany, France, to meet with the salt people. I don't speak French," and he goes, "I'll go with you." So this was like this completely off the cusp meeting that I met these two attorneys at a bar at a bachelorette party at 3 o'clock in the morning. And they said, "Listen, we need an act off to justify us coming to California." And I said, "Well, I have a business, act like we did this." And I kept his contact, and I called Vincent and I said, "Listen, I got to go to Brittany, and this is not going to be easy." He says, "You fly into Belgium. I'll drive you down. We'll kind of brainstorm the whole trip down, the 3 hour drive down."
Oh.
And he represented me, spoke the language. At the end of the day, they rolled out the red carpet, because business is business, and they really wanted the business. So um, that's what happened, and it turned out really good. But you know what, Tess? You can tell that I had angels in my life all these times. The fact that I met this attorney like 5 years prior, you know what I mean? I mean, what's the chance of that? And we're still friends.
Incredible, incredible. So, was that experience where you were scared to death and you went, "It has to be me anyway. I'm doing it. I have to because you got to keep this company afloat. You've
Mhm.
got to build this relationship." Was that a template then, that experience that served you well in other times where you felt terrified and went, "It has to be me anyway. I got to do this." Did you draw from that where it's like business is business? You know what? Even if somebody tells you, then they're not going to tells me they're not going to do it. I'm gonna make them see me. Is that something that carried you forward?
Yes, that did. And also, what I realize is, and I don't know if other people have the same experience, it's the anticipation of that, of what's going to happen is worse than actually when I get in there. It's like I get fired up. It's like, a person on stage.
Yes.
So all of a sudden they're like, whoa. And that's what happens to me. It's like I just get this download and I become this power woman in the meeting and I don't know where it comes
Yeah.
from. So,
Oh, it's so fabulous, but you are so right. The fear
yeah.
that we have is attached to the outcome, not the actual act. So we're afraid that the outcome's going to be terrible and destroy us
Yeah.
instead of that it will be wonderful for us, or that we will be able to make it a good thing for us, or we'll be able to go with the flow no matter what happens.
Mhm.
So you talked about how you've got this incredible ability to forecast and assess the risks and see ahead and anticipate the next move and make sure that you and your team are prepared, which I think is really one of your big superpowers. There's been a lot of things in your business that have really forced you to really step up. So you talked about diversifying your salt sources, not just getting it from Brittany. What happens if something happens to this region and we don't have any salt? So talk me through how you've been able to diversify so successfully and get that beautiful salt from Hawaii and
Mhm.
and Portugal and some of these other incredible areas of the world, and forge those amazing relationships with those suppliers. Because one of the things that I really love about you is your commitment to excellence. Like, you will visit every single one of these places. You will delve into their harvesting process. You will help them make the changes that are necessary to meet your extremely high standards for what a quality salt is.
Absolutely. And I think that brings me one of the most pleasures of all of it to be able to say, I'm going to be a resource of revenue for these people that are, harvesting the salt. That feels so good. It also feels good that I've,
Yeah.
actually improved their harvesting by having the people from France come to help them and do different techniques in the harvesting method. And I have turned some salt down because it was not
Ah,
up to my standards of quality. So, as a matter of fact, I'm leaving Wednesday to go to Guatemala because um, business has grown so much. Guatemala is going to start packaging my salt in the bags, but I got to go inspect it and see how it's going to be done before I allow them to do it. Because, we get the salt in bulk and we package it so we can see everything that goes in there, So I got to make sure they're going to do
yeah.
it right.
Look, listen, what anytime, because I use your salt in everything that I do, and so do so many people in my programs and who got my cookbooks and make the recipes, etc., is that anytime that I see an article or somebody writes to me and says, "Oh, well, I heard the Celtic sea salt has lead or plastic, or I shouldn't be doing it, and I shouldn't be doing this, and Himalayan crystal salt is better," and blah blah blah, and I write to you, you and your team always, shout out to Stephanie,
Uh-huh.
your niece, always send me back with complete transparency, third party testing, a complete analysis of your salt versus this salt versus that salt, that I'm able to then pass on with full transparency to anybody that writes to me, which I really appreciate. I'd love to just share with our listeners the difference between really high quality salt and other salt. Can you just educate us about why it's not just the sodium and sodium chloride, but the magnesium, potassium, the calcium, the magnesium, all these other incredible minerals, and why the quality of your salt matters so much?
Absolutely. Right now, I cannot say that there are, white papers or actually case studies saying that before and after effect of someone eating a mineral salt and their health. But I can say that when Jacques founded the company and started educating me, it wasn't about making eating the salt so that you had a supplement of magnesium, potassium, and calcium. It was you cannot take just pure sodium chloride. You need the delivery system for it to work in your body, for it to communicate properly. So you need the magnesium and the calcium and phosphorus and all these other trace minerals, also over 70 trace minerals, to have the sodium and the chloride work properly in the body. And basically that's it. So when I go
Yes.
look for a salt, I the first thing that I do, and well, like the Mackay salt was introduced to me. I was at a trade show. This pharmacist came to me and gave me a little 10 cc vial of this white salt, and I went, "This is not going to be any good. It's white." Okay, so this is years ago. Okay, so I said, "You know what?"
Because we only do the grey salt. That's what
Exactly.
Jacques taught
He
us.
got me, but he got my attention because he said this comes from water that is crystallized, and the water comes from 2,000 feet below the surface of the ocean. I went, whoa, I gotta see what this is. I sent it to the lab, and my lab guy calls and goes, "We need to do another test. Can you get more of this? Because this doesn't look right." He goes, "The alkalinity is 10. It's off the charts with the calcium." He says, "I've never seen a salt like this." And that's that profile of that salt from Hawaii. Every salt that has come to me, I didn't go look for it. It came to me. It's like the angels were bringing the salts to me. And I did the due diligence to explore it. But the first thing I do is send it to the lab. If the lab comes back where it's in that profile, and what I look for is I don't like sodium chloride in the 90%. I like it in the 80s. So, like the light gray is like 82% sodium chloride. And people would say, that doesn't seem like it's that much, but I'm trying to explain to people these are not supplements. It's not a magnesium, calcium, and potassium supplement. It's a delivery of your sodium chloride in the proper way. That's all this is. So you don't need to have a whole bunch
Yes.
of magnesium and sodium, all those things. So when I go and I look for a salt, that's what I look for is those ranges. And I do have 3 analysis of the Himalayan salt because I was very curious what it was all about, but the analysis I kept getting was not up to the standards of what I wanted. So I just didn't, and I wasn't going to go to Pakistan. So I just kind of let the Himalayan, I kept going, oh, that's going to go away. I had not a clue it was going to explode the way it did. I still don't know how something with so little backing exploded the way it did. I don't know how it happened. It's
It's look,
revolutionary.
food trends continue to baffle
Oh,
me,
because
right? I mean, I get this question every single day about Himalayan salt. Why don't you use Himalayan salt? Well, let me tell you why I don't. So can you let's share with everybody why we don't use Himalayan salt. Let's talk about the difference between the profile and what you found in your testing as opposed to these really mineral rich salts that you put to market.
Well, the alkalinity was not as alkaline as ours. Ours is about 7.5, and the Himalayan salt was 6.2. So it just wasn't as alkaline as ours was one. And the sodium chloride was, I have 3 different samples, and it was 97.6, 92 point something, and 97. Yeah, so
Whoa.
that was the sodium chloride. So I just said, I'm not going to do it. It just doesn't
Whoa.
make sense to me. Um, but I was all about it, Tess. I mean, in 1996, there was an article in the Prevention magazine that talked about this pink Himalayan salt. And I ordered some, and it came to my warehouse, but nobody had ever heard of it. Nobody had ever seen it. They sent boxes and boxes and boxes of lamps and candle holders and soap dishes. And I went, I just wanted
Before that was a trend everywhere.
And I mean, that sat on a pallet for I don't know how long. And I said, oh, whatever. And then the calls started coming in about the Himalayan salt because I didn't pick it up because I sent it to the lab to have it analyzed and it wasn't the profile I wanted. I had not a clue. I kept saying, this is
Yeah.
going to blow over. Don't worry about it. And, started, I even started to try to go up there and have the debates of what's better and not. And I didn't like that energy or that vibration. So I backed off. and I never talked bad about Himalayan again. I just said it is not my responsibility to educate people on Himalayan. I will educate people on what I know and what I'm doing. I don't need to put anything else down to tell how good what I have is. It's just not necessary.
Well, you certainly don't have to, because things got viral during COVID and you just could not keep up with production. So let's talk about that "it has to be me" moment where had to figure it out, where that video went viral and everyone wanted your salt and you could not keep up with the
I was
demand.
in production
And
10-hour days.
let's talk about that
Oh my
moment.
gosh, Tess, when it started happening, we were going, God, what the heck happened? I mean, I wrote my book and I was like,
Actually, let's take everybody inside what actually
okay,
happened so that we're all
okay,
listening to the
okay,
same
I'll tell you.
story. Like, so there was this viral video and it went
And
bananas.
it
Yeah.
went bananas. And but the interesting thing was it went out there the same time I started doing podcasts for my book. And so I was very full of myself thinking, dang, that podcast really made some stuff. But then I realized, I'm not kidding you. I was like, well, I'm full of myself. But at the same time, the Barbara O'Neill video went out and I went, oh, it wasn't my book. It's the video.
I mean, that Barbara O'Neill video, I mean, everybody wanted your salt. I mean, I was getting emails that same week going, Tess, I can't get the salt. I can't get it anywhere. What's going on? I said, it's because of that
I
video. Like,
know.
when a video goes viral, yeah.
But Barbara O'Neill was part of our company years ago. She actually used to talk to Jacques Delangre on the phone. Yeah, years ago. Yes, that's before
Wow.
she got. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
oh, how did you respond to that when people who had been buying your salt for years, everybody wanted it? How did you respond to that when you just could not meet the demand? You could not give people the product.
Well, it started out having some back orders in the system, and I would let you know that my production team would come in and go, "Can we go home early today?" And I'd look at my back orders. I go, "Yeah, go ahead. You guys got this." that's that's not happening. I have over $10 million worth of back orders in my system right now. I mean, it's really it has not slowed down at all. So the reality of that, I thought, okay, first of all, I had 10, maybe 13 people in production, and me and my sister, which is my CFO, we started working in production to try to get these orders out. We weren't even making a dent. We were like working so hard, not even making a dent. Then we ran out of salt because it takes 8 to 10 weeks to get our salt from the source. We didn't have any forecasting for this big blowout. So we ran out of different salts from different times. The phones were ringing off the charts. And my beautiful Ian that used to work for us, actually, it was too much for him. He lost it. And this is real. This is a reality. He we have pleased our customers for so many years. They they request, we give. They request, we couldn't. We didn't have the capacity. The phones were
Yeah.
ringing 500 calls a day off the hook, and Ian couldn't keep up. And he was waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning trying to answer emails, and it was too, he really became ill because it was so stressful because we care so much. You know what I'm saying? Like, well, my doctor just told me, you don't understand. I don't want to have to get back on my blood pressure medicine. I need this salt. I need this salt. The pressure was,
Uh,
it was horrifying. It affected my health because I was not handling the stress very well. Um, and I hate to say it, but now it's almost like the new normal for us is we will get it to you as best we can.
whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because of your superpower is forecasting ahead, analyzing the risk, all that sort of stuff, and it consumes you. What are you going to be doing to meet this new normal? To meet the production? You had told me recently how you were expanding, how you were going to pack it, the facility, all
Mhm.
that sort of stuff. Tell us about how you're expanding with
Well,
that.
for the first time ever, we're bringing co-packers in, which is very scary for me because I feel like it's losing control of my quality, and that's very scary. But we have, explored the co-packers pretty well. We put a scorecard together so that all of our customers that are getting supply from the co-packers, they can score it to make sure they tell us how they are doing. And we reply very quickly if it's not working. What a learning curve, I'm telling you. That was a huge learning curve. But now we have three co-packers right now. We want to bring on probably three more to help with this demand. But we're getting really creative, Tess. I'm telling you, it's just it's amazing what we're able to do. And what, like, we're going to start having our brand Celtic Sea Salt is registered in 18 different countries all over the world. And so we have distributors all over the world, in Dubai and Malaysia and Singapore and Canada, the UK, all of Europe, Hong Kong, China. So what we're doing is we're having our French supplier package the salt for them, and now we're going to put the orders in at the source, and they're going to make it in cases and send it directly to our international customers. So we don't even have to touch it. Well, when we put this in place, Tess, we said, okay, you have to, if this is going to work, your minimum is to order a 40-foot container. That's 20 pallets. Okay, that's 42,000 pounds. That's your minimum order. Listen to this. They were putting 2 and 3 container orders in as soon as we told them we're going to start this. I don't know what's going on. I just keep waking up going,
the salt is the best salt in the world. That's what's going on.
This dream, and I'm going to wake up and go, you're not going to believe what I just There was a movie that came out 2 Octobers ago, 2 Halloweens ago, called Hocus Pocus. And my niece calls me and she goes, your salt is on this movie. And I go, no, it's not. I'm sure it's I mean, it's like up front, close up, that these witches are taking the salt off the shelf at Walgreens. Walgreens didn't even carry our salt. They just staged it for the movie. People are calling going, how much did you pay for that placement? I said, I didn't even know what happened.
Well, I mean, it really is such a great example of you just focus on the quality, and you focus on caring, and you focus on your honesty, your integrity. I mean, it's just such a beautiful example of this. And you know, as popular as this salt has gotten, it is absolutely everywhere. It's such a huge recognized brand now. It still feels like this family company.
Aww.
So Carla, your daughter, works with the company. Stephanie, your niece, your sister is your CFO. Your friends, and you really do treat all of your employees like family. You're in, Asheville, North Carolina, and in this sort of beautiful space. Tell me about the this really important relationship you have with your sister. Running this company, she's like, your partner, your right hand person. Tell me more about that relationship in the business.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I've talked to a lot of business mentors, and they've advised me that the best person you want in your financial department is like a family member, because they will watch your back, and that's what my sister has been for me. We're both single parents and have been, and so we kind of just partnered together and said, this is all about us doing it. And both of us have learned just every day, not knowing what we were doing, but had to learn. And I'm so proud of her, of everything that she's done. But there are times that she comes in and she's shaking and she's trying to hold a piece of paper. And I go, what's the matter? She goes, the sales tax people just called, and I didn't realize that I was supposed to do this, and I did this. I go, it's okay. It's okay. We're going to get through this. You see what I'm saying? So we have like been through hell and back again. Like when my company was
the flood story.
Oh my God. This was so I got the divorce.
Tell everybody about that.
I paid my husband off. We had the company appraised. I paid him off for the value, and for the half that we both own 50-50. And so not even 3 to 4 weeks after the divorce was final and I was in debt like you don't believe, the there was a dam that broke in Asheville, North Carolina, and my whole company was underwater. Um, I mean,
Literally.
really, like I was in France doing what I do there every year to go look at the supply, and my sister calls me and says, "There's been a flood," and I went, "Why are you calling me in France?" I said, "Go get a wet vac," and she goes, "No, Selena, I am in a canoe looking in the window of the second floor." So, Tess, there is nothing in my imagination that
Oh,
could get that visual.
no,
I'm in the
that
mountains.
was
I'm
effective.
in the mountains. I'm not in Florida, you know? And but
Oh,
we were completely underwater, and the only thing that saved us was our server was up on a wall, and it was like this far away from the water, so we still had our
oh,
database, and we had to send our catalog out. That's when I had like over 4,200 products that I used to buy from people and put in my catalog and the newsletter and all of that.
another one of your
uh,
superpowers.
and then the flood, and all of the products were gone. And so it was crazy.
Uh,
It was really crazy. We had to pivot very quickly. So at that time, I realized we got to get into distribution. I went to the SBA, the FEMA Foundation to help people, flood victims. Sat there, wrote a business plan right in front of them, and said, "This is what I'm doing." And I was able to get $250,000 at 2% interest to help us get through that from the SBA.
wow.
But that was after I just paid my husband off.
I mean, but I was thinking about I was thinking about you preparing for our conversation and reading your book, and there are just a certain words that come to mind when I think about you, and it is faith,
Mhm,
it's resilience, it's hope, strength,
mhm,
integrity, transparency, honesty, love. I mean, I want to go back to something that you talked about before when you said, "This is why I have to
mhm,
retire because I'm
mhm,
exhausted." So, what's your plan moving forward
mhm,
so that you can settle into turning those superpowers on restoring you for this next chapter with your
mhm.
grandchildren, passing the legacy on to Carla and the next generation of powerful women in your family? Like, what does that feel like as you prepare for that, using your superpower of forecasting the future and figuring out what this next chapter looks like? What does that feel like for you right now?
It is, I go back and forth of, actually, I have been even experiencing some depression in this because this company is my identity. And if I don't have it, then who am I? So I'm really working on
Ooh.
myself to say, who am I without this company? Because we tend to identify ourselves from what we do, not just who we are, you know?
Tell me more about that. How else do you identify yourself? Like, what else is tied to your identity besides the company?
Yeah.
What's been coming up for you as you explore that?
Um, Possibly, being the mother of my daughters, being the daughter of my mother. But it's interesting that I don't know if everyone listening has the same thing, but without another person being a mirror to you, a reflection to you, what is your identity? Who are we without each other? You know what I mean?
Mm.
At the end of the day, it's kind of like if a tree falls in a forest, nobody's there. Is there any sound? So
So, the mirrors that you look into that you feel are the clearest and they're not a distorted view of who you are and who you want to be, who are those people for you?
hmm, probably the people that love me unconditionally and don't have an agenda. Um, when they meet me, when you reach a certain level of success, and I'm the one that's doing this. I tend to, I kind of got this analogy in my download, but it's like I will cast the bait out there, and the bait is this: hi, I'm Selena. I own a company. It's worth this much money and I have all these resources and everything. Well, the person that took the bait saying, wow, you must have told me that for a reason. I kind of would love to have you help me do this. And can you help me do that? But I threw the bait out there. Then I resent them coming to me asking for help. But it's my identity. It's like, and that's what I'm trying to do now. Hi, I'm Selena. I'm enough. Stop. Stop
Ooh.
there.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So yeah, you are. Yeah, you
Mm,
are. So what would be the bait that you would throw out now
mm. I can hold space.
for me to take
I
up
can hold
now?
space.
If I was going to meet you right now and I didn't know that you were
Yeah.
Selena from Selena Naturally and Celtic Sea Salt, what bait would you throw out for
Good
us to
question.
start our
I
conversation?
think it would probably be I am enough. I would love to be able to explore what our interaction is without any of my resources on the table. That would be it. I actually have a coach counselor, and he gave me 3 affirmations to work on as I'm going through this. And the first one is, you have fulfilled all of your obligations. Stop it. Stop thinking you're responsible for everyone's needs. Number 2 is, trust yourself. Don't always feel like you have to go out and ask advice from everybody. And then you're really confused because you're asking advice from everybody. And then number 3 is, the devil is in the details, but basically what he was talking about was, because of the way your brain is wired, you tend to want to know exactly how everything is going to, a timeline of how everything is going to lay out. And that's just exhausting you. Let it go and surrender, and don't feel like you got to figure out all those details. So, those 3 little things I've been using to try to help myself say, hi, I'm Selena, I'm enough.
Yeah, gosh, it's so interesting as I'm you're making me think about my own
Mhm.
resources, you know. So when I think about you and anytime I want to talk to you and I think about your resources, I never think about the company
Wow.
resources. I always think about your heart, your intelligence, your life experience, your mentorship, your compassion, your insight. I think of those as your resources, that I want to get messy with, that I want to talk about, that I want to that I want to look into the mirror of,
Mm.
that's going to help me understand more about who I am and who I want to be. So, oh gosh, I can't wait
But
to
that says a lot
to
about you, Tess, because not everyone can see someone with that many resources without saying, oh, interesting. I've had this. Maybe she can help me develop this product. Maybe she can help, do you see what I'm saying? So that says a lot about you,
I
that you're not coming to relationships in a needy
yeah.
way. You're coming complete, you know?
Yeah, look, I do thank you. I do love the saying, I am
Mm.
whole and together we're
Oh, I
more.
love that. See,
Y-
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the mirrors that I
It's
need to look into. And I have to be mindful of the people that are in my vortex, that are in my circle of influence. I have to be very mindful. I think we all do. Um, but I think because my resources might be financial, but there's also other people that, oh, I'm going to go make dinner for you and I'm going to clean your house for you. I'm going to, everyone does it in their own way. What could I do for you? What could I do for you? And then they go, they're always asking me for help. Well, you're the one that said, what can I do for you?
I do really love this message of what is the bait that you are throwing
Mhm.
out. So it better be the bait that you want to hook
Or
somebody
you'll
with,
resent
because
them.
they're going to grab onto
And
that
it's not their
and you're
fault.
going to reel them
Mhm.
in.
It's not their
Yeah.
fault.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I really love this message. Thank you for that. So, what do you hope the legacy will be moving forward with Celtic Sea Salt, with Selena Naturally, when you're not there anymore? What do you hope?
That Celtic sea salt has its own destiny, and anybody that takes this position that I'm in, they're just a steward of it. So I hope that it will continue expanding in its own destiny and continue to help other people prosper whatever way, from health, revenue, or whatever, in its expansion, in its destiny. But the main thing is continue to understand that the lifeblood of this company are people like you. That is the life pulse and blood and plasma of this company. If you look at my spreadsheets, you will say, how did they get to be where they are and not spend any money on advertising? It's because of people like you.
We just love the salt, you know? Seriously, like I carry it in my purse to restaurants. I just stick it on my tongue if I've got a dry mouth. I mean, it's just, I, and it just adds such spectacular flavor and has changed my life from a health perspective as well. So, yeah, it's just a great product, and you're just really great people. So, I always close every episode with the same question, so I will ask it to you as well, which is, for somebody listening to our conversation and your incredible story and successful business story, but also growth journey as a human being who's got a dream in their heart right now, but they're not quite sure, that they feel like they don't have what it takes to make it happen and go after what they want, what would you say to them?
I would say that people should not count on their physical resources. They need to tap into supernatural resources, and they are out there, and it's real. This dimension, this 3D dimension, is just barely giving us the resources we need. We need to tap into another dimension to get the power that we can be. And that's what people understand. It's not about your power and your strength. It's about surrendering and tapping into the power that can come through you.
Ooh, tell me a little bit more about
Mm.
that. How do you tap into that? I know that you are a proud woman of
Mm-hmm.
faith. And so tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, I mean, I am of faith. I'm not of religion at all. I don't go to church, but I don't judge anybody that does. But I do know that even in the simplest scriptures, such as when Jesus Christ said, "You guys are going to have just as much power as I do, maybe more." Why would Jesus say that if he didn't mean it? So I'm just believing what Jesus said. Because that's what I believe, that Jesus was an example of the power that we do have. I mean, Tess, you've seen healers, you've seen people be totally healed, and everybody acts like
I
Jesus was the
have.
only one. You know, that's my theory. That's my thing, is you got to tap into a supernatural power. Anybody can call it whatever they want. They can call it the universe, they can call it God, they can call it whatever you want, but it's real. And and I think people need to understand that and tap into it. How do you tap into it? You ask for it. You just go there. You just
Ooh, I love
ask.
that.
You know, it's kind of like they're just waiting to be asked. Just ask, and it will come through. I'm a testament of it.
Yes,
I
you
got really
are.
bad
That
grades in
is a.
school. I think I was like voted to be the least to succeed in school. And it's okay. It just goes to show you, it's not about our own physical attributes. It's about how do we tap in and be a portal for the supernatural powers that we can tap into. That's what I think it is.
I just love the just ask.
Yeah, just ask.
It's just that simple. I feel like I've been making it way too complicated.
Don't we? Don't I think that we do tend to do that. And like I said, it's almost like that second wind, or that you get on the stage and you become a different. It's not you anymore. You don't know where it's coming from, right? You've experienced this, right? And it just kind of comes through. Well, where is it? Who is that? What is it that makes us do that? I don't know.
Yeah. For me, I always feel like I tap into the greater
Yep.
energy, higher power,
Yeah.
whatever words we want to use for our individual sense of that. And then it merges with my internal power and my strength, and I put those things together,
Mhm.
and that's how I get up and speak in front of thousands of people, or that's how I find the strength to act when I'm terrified about something. But this is what's so wonderful about life and wonderful about human interaction is that we all, when we give ourselves permission to have our own experience, whatever that means, and whether anybody else understands it, whatever it is that makes us make sense of the world is ours. And for me, as I get older, the more permission I give myself to do it my
Mm,
way, the more luck I have. You know what I mean?
yeah.
In the sense of, and for when I look at your story, you have very much discovered how to do things your way, and that inspires me.
But we also have to remember we should never judge anyone for doing it their way too, because judgment is big, big.
Exactly.
I do it and I don't even, I go, I look at something and I hear my thoughts. I go, well, what the heck? Why did you just judge that? You know, even if it's
Yeah.
I don't know what it would be, but we're in constant judge mode. But if we started to look at the eyes and just look through the eyes of God, you could say there's nothing to judge. It's just an observation. It's all just observation. If we could just observe with no judgment, can you imagine what kind of beautiful world it would be? It would just be such a great,
Yeah.
great place. And I'll tell you, being a business owner, that's an attribute that I think everyone should really try to embrace is the kind of do not judge. Do not judge people. They're doing their very best. Um, give them the affirmation. I know you did your very best. But I have to do say, I really have to say also, I'm an entrepreneur and a visionary, and I'm learning. I just read this book called Rocket Fuel, and I'm learning that I don't make a good CEO because a good CEO holds people accountable, and I don't do that very well. Oh, look, their desk is a mess. I'm gonna hurry up and clean it up, and then but my daughter Carla, she totally holds people accountable. She's got it, man. She's a Taurus, so she does a little bit better than I do.
Oh gosh, I tell you. Well, we could unpack that all
I
day long
know.
because I'm a Taurus
Okay, so
too.
you
But
know how to hold
oh
people
my
accountable,
goodness.
and that's just it. When you're building a business, there are so many layers and elements to make it successful. So many,
Yeah,
so many.
there's so many
Yeah,
layers and elements to make this
yeah.
successful. I mean, we can just apply that to
Ugh,
anything, can't we?
everything.
It's yeah, wow. Wow. Oh, thank you for joining me. What a beautiful
Thank you.
conversation. I cannot
Mm.
wait to see what you do
Oh, thank you
next.
so much. I want to leave with this cute little quote that I heard. I read this book because I was kind of struggling, and it's the cutest little book. Can you see it? Is it glared? It's so cute.
Yeah.
And there's it's called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. And it's just these cute little sketches throughout the whole book with a little saying on them. But I love one of the sayings that really helped me when I was going through this whole backward. You can't really see it. But the
Oh,
little
no,
boy is
share
on the
it.
horse and he says to the horse, "Oh, horse, we have so far to go." And the horse says, "Oh, but look behind you how far we've gone. Look how far we've come." And I
Yes.
think we all need to remember that when we think, gosh, we have so far to go. Let's just look back and look at our little successes that we've been able to accomplish.
I love that. And I love you.
I love
Thank
you
you.
too. It's a beautiful world you're creating, Tess, by these interviews. Thank you for doing this for
Oh, it's a beautiful world we're creating
us. Yes.
together. So thank you for being
Oh,
part of it.
absolutely. Anytime. Mm.
I hope that conversation has gotten you fired up to use quality salt in your life and really research what's in the salt that you're using. It was really interesting when she was talking about the third party testing and getting the salt analyzed for the alkalinity and the mineral composition, and how we need all of those minerals like calcium, magnesium, potassium, phosphorus, in order to utilize the sodium for better health. So definitely use the show notes and read some of the resources on Selina's websites because they're really helpful. On a personal level, so many key takeaways, the power of doing things your way and trusting your intuition and figuring it out as you go along, and being really mindful of the people that you have in your vortex and your circle of influence, and letting go of the fear and the shame and the guilt and the blame in life, in business, in your personal life, with your food journey, that it's about flexibility and joy, and enjoying things and finding those reasons to be happy and find gratitude, and trusting yourself that it's a strength to ask people for help, but often you have the answer. And just trusting that you do and that it doesn't need to be validated by anybody else, and observing without judgment that we're all doing the best that we can. And when you think that you've got so far to go with a goal, to just look back and celebrate the successes that you've already had and really celebrate how far you have come. When she told that little story at the end, that really, really spoke to me. I'm going to be thinking a lot about the conversation that we had about identity and what I tie my identity to and how I make sense of myself. And I invite you to do the same. It's a really interesting thing to really be thinking about, as you get older and as we move through life. They're interesting conversations to have with others as well. The other thing that really resonated for me was when she was talking about what is the bait that you're throwing out. And you better be sure that it's bait you want others to pick up on, that you don't want to resent people because you've thrown something out and then they want to use it, right? That's something I'm going to be thinking about. And the SWOT analysis, I mean, it's such a great thing to do in business, but assessing the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats is a great strategy when you're thinking about any of your it has to be me moments. So I'm interested to hear what your key takeaways are. So share them in the community.
I want to hear about your It Has to Be Me story. So head on over to ithastobeme.com/stories to share it in our free community. You can also join the conversations we're having about this episode and others. I'm Tess Masters. Join me next week and we'll dive inside another great story to help us go from dreaming to doing.